speaking of reports, Julius Malema has come out saying that he will walk around Parliament naked if a parliamentary committee decides that you have to wear a suit and tie in Parliament. Lisa, not something I want to see.
Please no.
Yeah.
I mean, the last time I heard from you in preparation for this was saying that he was going to ask these difficult questions in Parliament, and I was feeling, really good about a lot of it. And then when I saw this morning, I thought, no, that I don't feel good about. Just because it's more Julius than anyone needs to see, I think.
This is the brilliance of Julius Malema. The news, he knows how to churn news out about himself.
Yeah.
Literally, we were just thinking what's going to happen in Parliament when do they? And now it's this. He's talking about he's going to be naked in Parliament because now that's what we must talk about. He's good when it comes to getting stories about himself out there. I have to tip my hat off to him.
But on the other hand, I'm not in politics, but if I were, I think I would insist on suits because I get hung up about that stuff. Like when Cape Townians don't know what black tie means.
Lisa, I want to come to you on this point. You are my most fashionable friend by far.
Thank you.
But when we think about Parliament, should we have a dress code for Parliament, or does Julius Malema have a point? Because here's what he says. He says he is not smelly like some of the other MPs. Again, vintage Malema.
Yeah.
Some of the MPs in shirts and ties smell really bad. He's clean. He's wearing his overalls as a sign that he's coming to Parliament to work. He'll never wear jeans and tackies. So then, should we force him to wear a suit and a tie? Should we hold parliamentarians to a dress code?
I see what he's saying and I appreciate the sentiment, but I mean, you're asking someone who thinks it should be a dress code for brunch. So I don't really think you're asking the right person here. I think that a man in a suit is just lovely.
Right. And I think Malema in a suit is better than Malema in a birthday suit.
Absolutely. I mean, I appreciate the whole overalls thing, but yes, I would definitely prefer Malema in a suit over Malema in a birthday suit.
Mbalasi?
Not that I'm fat shaming. I would just like to say that. It's not because of his body. I would just like to clarify that's not what this is about.
Good to know.
I think it's a little. Look, the people who are putting these new rules in place are saying it was before the time of the EFF. That's what they're saying. I don't know how true that is. And I suppose if they want to put in a dress code, and fine, they can do it. But if as Malema says, and I feel it's probably true, that the EFF is being targeted with this dress code, then it's rubbish. Then we don't really need a dress code. And Parliament is already such a shambles. Does it really matter if somebody's wearing an overall? Because I'd rather them actually start doing some proper work in there and providing oversight than them having to actually decide what passes as acceptable and not acceptable in Parliament.
Right. What about what Julius Malema is saying, and that's that wearing a suit is just some type of colonial influence that South Africans don't need?
But then, I mean, so is most of the clothing we wear day to day.
Yeah. Well, the overall is definitely not
it's not exactly it's not exactly a tribal thing or something that's local. I mean, I think I see where he's coming from, but then there's nothing that we can wear in South Africa.
Or very little, at least.
Yeah. Very little,
yeah.
Which we don't want, as we've said.
No.
I mean, yeah, I guess he technically is right, but it's a bit of a thin argument from my point of view. Rather, he should stick to arguing that we're being targeted. This is unfair to the EFF.
Yeah, I think that's his stronger argument.
That's a strong one.
Now, are you looking forward to him shaking things up by asking the president these really important questions, namely, when is he going to pay back the money? Should Malema do it at the State of the Nation address? Should he wait?
Well, I mean, on the one hand, I have a lot of friends who have immigrated or friends that just have always lived abroad, and it's sort of comical to me how they react to our politics because it's a bit of a dog show in comparison. I do feel a big relief sometimes when I look at politics abroad and it's just as bad, but sometimes things here seem crazy. So you don't really want that kind of spectacle because it makes our politics look really disorganized and all over the place. But on the other hand, if it's going to get results, there's never a good time, if you're Jacob Zuma, there's never a good time for these questions to be asked. So
because you definitely do not have answers that are going to get you out of trouble.
Yeah.
Definitely not. So there's never a good time for it, but also maybe I assume this is his approach. Maybe this is the only way we can actually try get a response, try get some accountability.
Well, Zuma, the presidency said that he'll come in March. On March 11th, he'll go back to Parliament to answer the questions, but the State of the Nation is before that. And Malema's demand was that there must be a special seat, sitting of parliament before the State of the Nation, so that Zuma can answer the questions. Then they can have a State of the Nation with all the pomp and ceremony and nothing like that happens. But Baleka Mbete has said that's not going to happen. You'll get the answers on March the 11th.
Oh.
Now, as to whether or not should the EFF disrupt the State of the Nation, I feel kind of two ways about it. The State of the Nation is literally one of the most boring things that happen in South Africa.
Thankfully, we have a drinking game, South African drinking game.
Yeah, there's now the State of the Nation drinking game. Not that I've ever done it. But, so, I mean, it would make for great TV to watch it, to see that happening. And does it matter if, like, the decorum of the moment is breached? I don't really think so. At the Barack Obama gave his State of the Union last week sometime, and they had a Chief Justice fall asleep in the middle of the speech. They had the heckling going on. That happens all the time in there. British Parliament, they hardly like the.
They make us look tame.
Yeah.
They are wild.
Out of control.
So I don't know why we should hold up this idea that Parliament is a place where you must be respectful. If Parliament is based on the British system, our Parliament, if that's what they're doing over there, why can't the EFF get things turned up over here?
And if you think about what it's all about, I mean, it's not about decorum or anything like that. And if this is the way we have to go about solutions to problems.
But you see, that's my other thing. It's I don't think that's my pro EFF throwing things up. Then the other side of me feels it's not going to reach. It's not going to
achieve anything.
It's not going to achieve anything. So what's the point, really?
Look, I mean, there's no doubt that the Powers and Privileges Committee is made up of ANC MPs, and the ANC MPs in Parliament have done absolutely everything they can to frustrate the EFF's efforts. You know, they'll shut this thing down immediately, but it's got us speaking around every single dinner table. Every South African is saying, you know what? When are you going to pay back that money?
And even if something doesn't achieve results directly, I don't think that's a reason that we should just sit down and ignore it.
Fair point, yeah.
So I want to speak just a little bit about Mmusi Maimane. Of course, lots of people saying that he's riding Malema's coattails with the payback the money, and he's been asking over and over and over again for the president to account for this spending. But if we have a look at Twitter, and I chatted to a few... I'm going to sound old now. A few young kids, 20-year-olds from the University of Johannesburg.
Youths.
I know, youths, young'uns. Who said to me, now these are kids in Johannesburg studying in Joburg, mostly economics students, that they don't really see Mmusi Maimane as a man who represents them fairly. They see him as a man who's married to a white woman who now lives in Cape Town. Maimane is just not the person. In fact, Malema's the person who they want to put their faith in.
Well, a lot of young people, particularly young black people, have this feeling that Maimane does not represent them, which is fine. You can feel that Maimane doesn't represent you. But I do have issues when people start raising the fact, he's married to a white woman, that he speaks a certain way. And I'm like, well, that doesn't mean he's anything, that he can't represent you. You can say he doesn't represent me because of his politics, his views, and all these other things. But those two points, that's just rubbish.
I agree.
Yeah.
I mean, the fact that he's married to a white woman is just absolutely a non-issue.
Yeah.
It should be. And as for saying that Julius Malema represents them, I mean, I look at South African voters and I absolutely see why they vote for the EFF.
Yes, it makes sense. I do understand why people vote for the EFF. The EFF is providing both, in my opinion, the ANC and the DA, as much as they have their differences, when you boil down away the politics and look at their core policies and things that they believe in, there are a lot more similarities than there are differences. The EFF came out with a much more radical, left-leaning point of view, something that wasn't that prevalent in mainstream South African politics. So now there's suddenly people who have these opinions that there should be rampant land you see, that's my opinion coming that I don't agree with it, but the way land redistribution should be done, that you must take the land, that we need to take back the mines, all that stuff. There are people who have those opinions, and that is their right in a democratic state, and it's good for them to feel that there's someone who's representing their opinions within Parliament.
And it's also clear why they feel that way. If you look at our history, you can see why people feel so passionately about things like that.
Yeah.
So the bottom line on this conversation is we do not want to see Julius Malema naked in Parliament, but we certainly understand that he's got to do what he's got to do, and at the end of the day, if he can get back some of our tax money, well, that would be great too.
That would be great.
Yeah.
So what are the chances of the president actually responding to this? And what would you like him to respond with? In a perfect world.
A resignation. But I don't think that's going to happen.
No.
Look, I think going forward we're going to see the ANC continue to kind of shield him, and we're just gonna have to ride out the rest of the Zuma presidency. I don't think he's gonna go anywhere. He's gonna want that privilege of being a former president, so that he's always shielded from prosecution and all that stuff. So I don't see him going anyplace. And I think he's probably got a whole bunch of stuff and a whole lot of people within the ANC, because it doesn't make sense to me why they continue to protect this man who's clearly harming an institution that's 103 years old. He's destroying it, it's not going to be destroyed, but he's really doing massive damage to this institution. That is the ANC. So the only logical explanation I can think of is that why people like Cyril Ramaphosa and everyone else in the party continues to support him is that he must have something on some people, and that's forcing them to protect him. That's my little bit of conspiracy theorist thinking.
But many people believe that.
Yeah, it's the only way I can gel the two things happening at the same time.
So on a bit of a lighter note, if we have to pluck somebody out of civil society to be our next president, we can't pick from the ANC higher echelons. We've got to pick somebody from civil society. Lisa, can you think of someone you'd like to be president?
I mean, I'm always going to vote for myself.
I would vote for you.
And then we would have a dress code for brunch. Gosh, I haven't really thought about it, actually. I've been so hung up on feelings about Zuma that I haven't really ever thought about a replacement personally. Certainly not Cyril.
Why not? As a business person, doesn't something resonate with you when it comes to Cyril?
Sure, as a business person maybe, but I just because of Marikana,
it's difficult to overlook that.
It's really difficult for me to overlook that.
He played a really instrumental role in what happened over there, and I can't ever forget it, really.
And that's my main reason.
Yeah, very important to note.
Yeah. Well, we did try the whole civil society thing with Khang and what's her name?
What's her name?
Well, she's forgotten
not
it this
even a
week.
year.
Mapela, and that didn't work out that greatly. I don't know. There's something to be said about lifelong politicians. I mean, they're very irritating in the sense that they are lifelong politicians, but they get to the positions that they're in not because they're the best, technically they're the best person to run the country, but they know how to wield power and use it in ways that hopefully, Jacob Zuma's used it for not good things, but he knows how to wield and use power. You can also, with a lifelong politician, you can also use those same skills to do the right thing. So I don't have a problem with us working with having I wouldn't necessarily want a civil society leader. I'm okay with having a lifelong politician becoming the next president. Who that would be, I have no idea at this point.